So for this section, I will be making applesauce and apple wedges. I'm testing the effect that sugar has on the apple and the applesauce. So I will be adding sugar before the heating process, and I will be adding sugar after the heating process and see what the differences are. Okay, so I'm using Granny Smith apples because I feel like that's the apple to use kind of when you're making applesauce or apple pie. And I'm using Honeycrisp apples because they're my personal favorite apple. Okay, so I peeled and cored the apple. It took a while, so hopefully it doesn't take as long in the future. But this is a Granny Smith apple, and I'll be making wedges with it. Here's the apples with sugar on them, and sugar helps slow the conversion of pectin, which helps maintain the fruit's texture. So here are the apples after I cooked them. On the left is the apples that had sugar on it beforehand, and on the right, the sugar added after. So the apples obviously shrunk considerably, and this is because insoluble pectin substances between the cells convert to water-soluble pectins when they're heated, which causes the cells to separate, shrink, and fall apart. Here are the Honeycrisp apple wedges. The one on the left had sugar added afterwards, and the one on the right had sugar added beforehand. Once again, these shrunk, and there's a lot more water sitting at the bottom of the bowls, and this is due to heat denaturing the cell membranes that control the flow of water. The results were quite surprising. I think the best tasting one overall was the Honeycrisp apple that had sugar added after the heating process. It kept texture better, it was crunchier, and it was a tad bit sweeter, which I liked. The Honeycrisp apples were much more crisper, and that's due to the high water content compared to the Granny Smith. Now I'll be making the applesauce from these Granny Smith apples. It's pretty much the same as the apple wedges, but I will be mashing them together. Okay, so here they are all cooked, and now I'll be mashing them with a metal whisk because I don't have a potato masher at home. Okay, so on the left we have the sugar added after the heating, and on the right is the sugar added before the heating process. So the applesauce that had sugar added after is much more chunky, and the one with sugar added before the heating is much more thick. This is due to the fact that sugar slows the conversion of pectin, so the pectins retain their structure, and this helps to provide thickening. Here are the peeled and cored Honeycrisp apples. This one has the sugar on it, and the one on the right doesn't. Here are the apples after heating, and they both have like a substantial amount of water at the bottom of the bowl. On the left is the sugar added afterwards, and on the right is the sugar added before heating. And as you can see, there's a lot more water at the bottom of the bowl that had sugar added after heating than the one with sugar added before heating. And once again, this is due to the fact that sugar slows the conversion of pectin, so it doesn't fully convert into that water-soluble form. That also caused the Honeycrisp applesauce that had sugar added before heating to become much more thick. So in conclusion, I think the best applesauce was the Granny Smith that had the sugar added beforehand, and the best wedge was the Honeycrisp apple with sugar added afterwards.